the all-American half pound of sweet pure beef patty, lettuce, tomato.
Singles going steady.
This is Singles Going Steady, the podcast dedicated to exploring great singles with a particular eye to the punk, new wave, and DIY eras of the last century. I'm Adrienne Meddock.
And I'm Steve McGowan. We are in a band, the Beef People, who released a single in 1986 on our own label, Zub Records Limited Company. But we are record collectors and we're passionate about the expression of pop music perfection that is the single recording. Exploring the mystery of what makes for a great single is what propelled us to begin this podcast.
And I think this may be one of the great singles that we have today. What is it?
Today, we're going to talk about the Minneapolis band The Replacements and their single, I Will Dare.
And what number are we up to?
This is Singles Going Steady, 008.
008.
And this single, I Will Dare, was released shortly before their album Let It Be in 1984.
And you got to, just a second, the audacity, Let It Be. I mean,
that's The Replacements in a nutshell.
They're such wags.
Yeah, they are. I mean, calling an album Let It Be or Tim are, they're just crazy. This is a really, really good song. I'm personally not one of those super Paul Westerberg fanboys. A lot of guys I played with in bands have been, but and I think he's a great songwriter. But this, in particular, I think is one of his best songs.
I think one of the reactions I had to the single, because it was so great, was resentment.
Right.
Because it was just like, how can this be
so good?
So hooky, particularly on sort of like the heels of like, sorry, Ma, I forgot to take out the trash. And, I did not expect them to be.
Yeah, the Replacements definitely went through kind of a faux hardcore phase in the beginning.
And this is just pop perfection.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely it is.
Hooky, wise, self-effacing.
Yes, brilliant lyrics.
It's got the parallelism, some of which was cribbed later by certain songwriters.
What are you talking about?
All right, so this was I sort of had the in my mind for our single, for the A-side was Fragile, and you wrote the music, I wrote the lyrics.
Exactly.
And really sort of a response to I Will Dare, kind of like from a more sarcastic, because you've got sort of the optimism and like aw shucksism that's kind of behind I Will Dare.
Right.
And it's kind of clear-eyed, and it was kind of like, it's not that.
So you
simple.
wrote the lyrics as kind of a response.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that was in my mind, not direct, but kind of part of went into the stew.
That song, Fragile, of course, is our single, and we play a little bit of it in the intro to the podcast, and it'll be available when we do our reissue record, which will be coming out next year. We'll tell you more about that. But right now we're talking about The Replacements and I Will Dare, which is, again, one of our favorite records, which led... kind of like what we talked about in the last podcast with Husker Du, the single kind of before the album. This single is actually on the album, Let It Be. And Pete Buck makes an appearance again. He plays the little solo in the middle of the single. This is Twin Tone Records, which we haven't talked about yet. They are a Minneapolis label, an indie label. They were very influential around this period. They had records from bands such as The Suburbs and Soul Asylum, who would actually go on to be kind of famous, as well as The Replacements, and a lot of local Minneapolis stuff.
Soul Asylum's sort of like the headline mainstream success.
Yeah, I think they actually broke through to major label, where the Replacements did go to a major label but didn't quite make it.
But they're in the pantheon of greats.
Oh, yes.
In a way
yes. Mm-hmm.
that Soul Asylum, I don't think is
No.
thought of in the same way.
Not by us, anyway. So let's listen to a little bit of the Replacements from 1984. The single on Twin Tone is called I Will Dare.
Okay, I'm still a little resentful at how good that is. Hooky and just infectious.
Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a perfect song.
And it never lessens. It's perfect every time.
Yep.
I know that sounds.
Yep.
Yeah, some things wear down, but it never grows tired.
Mm-hmm. We Adrienne and I went and saw them on this tour in Chapel Hill. I believe it was at the Cradle, but there is some dispute of where it was. And
memories fade.
It was a long time ago, and it was the original band, the Let It Be band, with Bob Stinson still playing guitar. And I remember it pretty clearly that they came on and they just blistered through about 8 or 10 songs, and they were like the best band I'd ever seen. And then something broke, and all of a sudden everything stopped, and everybody was walking around like zombies. There was a roadie with
coming back,
like a cable in his hand, like trying to find where the amps were. And you got the impression that maybe the alcohol and or the drugs had just kicked in. It took them forever to get it back together, and they finally got up and started playing again. And then they were the evil Replacements, and they were doing the half-ass covers. You know, they doing stuff like Heartbeat, It's a Love Beat by the DeFranco Family, and they would play like a verse and a chorus, and then they quit. They did that for about an hour. So I remember it clearly as this band that I saw was like the best band I've ever seen and the worst band I've ever seen.
It was the best
one
of
gig.
Mats. It was the worst
Right.
of Mats.
Right. The Replacements became the Mats, right? And they were something. I don't know exactly what to say.
And I know later, I don't know if it was that tour, but we stopped by at the Milestone Club in Charlotte. We were driving by through there. We had our own gig somewhere, and we came
Right.
back through and said, let's just go stop and see the proprietor, Bill Flowers.
Right.
Let's see how the show with the Replacements went.
Right.
And what a character. So, well, how did it go, Bill? And he said, well, I don't know whether I should jump out a 6-story window once or a 1-story window 6 times. I was like, what went on? He said, well, they were drunk. Their roadies were drunk. If they'd had a dog, it'd have been drunk. So the stories are true.
Yeah, the legend is the truth, apparently. Despite the fact of their more than erratic live performances, and I think they were one of those bands that about 70% of the time they were pretty terrible, and then the 30% of the time they were magical. This is still an amazing single. Something you should definitely check out, and I think you should check out Let It Be as well.
Oh, yeah, and the 30% made up for the most part,
Yeah.
I guess, except for my mental block. The
Right.
70% must have caused a mental memory resentment that's not letting it flow.
We love this single. This is one of our favorites. A great American band. Paul Westerberg, of course, went on to make some other great records with the Replacements. It wasn't always quite the same after Bob Stinson passed. They got a little slicker, and then he went on to a solo career, and they have reformed recently. Him and Tommy, the bass player, and our friend Dave Minahan was playing guitar with them.
Yes, yeah.
That's right. He was the guitar player in the reformed Replacements.
Yeah, and Minahan from the Neighborhoods,
Yes.
who we'll be talking about in
Absolutely.
one of our favorite bands.
One of our favorite rock guys. So, do we have any recommendations for
I
today?
think we do.
Now, who could we hear covering this song?
Yeah, my recommendation is sort of tied into, living, dead, imaginary or fictional, who would cover this band and or cover this song. And, poor Bette Midler, we were talking about her, and we played a snippet of the Marshall Crenshaw cover. I'd like to hear her give this a stab. It would be interesting to see Bette's take on I Will Dare.
Yeah.
I actually think that might be something serviceable and maybe elevated.
I'd like to hear Mick Jagger doing it.
Oh, well, yeah.
No, not with the Stones.
Oh, or-
Mick Jagger's solo.
Oh, yeah. So
She's
he
the
has-
boss, Mick.
So he has
Mick
to wear
Jagger.
the guitar.
Yes, right, exactly. He has to have it around his neck.
accoutrement. Well, maybe a duet.
Wow. I don't know if we could have that kind of star power. Maybe if they recorded their parts separately.
It would be like the Tammy and George of the 70s set, right?
Absolutely. That would be great. Paul Westerberg would probably start drinking again. And,
I think we all might.
yeah. I would like to recommend the book about one of the many books about the Replacements. It's called Trouble Boys. I just read it recently, and if you're into the Replacements, you'll want to read it. If you're just casual, I don't know. It's kind of a depressing story, I have to say. Poor Bob Stinson had a lot of mental problems, and he had some trouble growing up, and
Self-medication
yes,
was
big deal.
a big issue.
And the guys, Paul and Tommy, they just were afraid of failure, basically, and they did pretty much everything they could to sabotage their career, and I think they were pretty successful at it, actually. There's a brilliant story in there about how they were up to no good up in Bearsville Studios. They just gotten a big new recording console, and Tommy dared Paul to get up and dance on top of it. And of course he did, a $300,000 console, and fistfights ensued, and all kinds of mayhem were going on. And this was early in the morning of the night, and they go into the little breakfast area, and who's sitting there eating their cereal? looking terrified, but the guys in Metallica are they're looking.
when you out rock misbehaved Metallica,
right? Yeah, they're horrified looking on at the Replacements and the shenanigans. The guys in Metallica are wearing sweaters and eating cereal and thinking seriously about their records. So the Replacements are rock and roll, I guess. That's my recommendation. Check out that book if any of that sort of nonsense interests you. You'll enjoy it. It's a well-written book. It's well-researched. And,
if you don't know I Will Dare, hopefully this taste of it will stick with you and maybe not feel resentment. Oh, I love this song so much.
I never be able to write a song that good.
Yeah, exactly. Give up.
It's great. Well, I think that's it for Singles Going Steady 008. The Replacements, I Will Dare.
And enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.
To learn more about the artists and recordings we just talked about, visit our website at zubrecords.com and click on the Singles Going Steady icon.
You'll also find links to the persons, places, and things we recommend, and much more.
You can find episodes of Singles Going Steady on our website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Singles Going Steady is brought to you by the power and majesty of Zub Records.
Zub Records. Smart sounds for sharp people.